And we're live. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Micah Toll, and I'm joined by Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. So we are both here in Florida today, and we are excited to talk about the latest in electric bike and other electric rideable news. We've got a lot of interesting stories to talk about this week. Just a quick overview of the subjects we'll be talking about. We'll start with VanMoof's new next-gen electric bikes, and then there's a new giant-wheeled 36-inch wheel electric bike coming out that's apparently one of Shaq's favorite bikes. Next, we've got a new mid-drive motor from Bafang, followed by a new electric moped update from Himiway. Aerial Rider has a 32-mile-an-hour electric bike coming out. And then keeping with all of these high-powered two-wheelers, we've got another Onyx model of electric moped, also another high-power, high-speed e-bike. Then we'll move into some electric motorcycles with the TS Bravo. Follow that up with the Wolf King GT, a 63-mile-an-hour standing electric scooter that we tested out this week. And we'll finish it up with the latest awesomely weird Alibaba electric vehicle of the week, which takes us a little maritime this week. So where are we starting off, Seth?
All right. VanMoof unveils next-gen electric bikes, including novel-sized A5 with new angled frame. Let's get in there.
Awesome. So yeah, these are VanMoof's newest e-bikes. VanMoof is a Dutch-based electric bicycle company. They're definitely known for these very sleek, very sexy looking, highly designed e-bikes. So the 5th gen includes the new S5 and the new A5. The S5 will be a little more familiar to most people that are used to that sort of horizontal top bar diamond frame bike. I think it drops to 27.5-inch wheels now, which is a little smaller. And then there's the new A5, which has similar tech, but it's got a sloping top tube. It's a bit of a smaller bike, 24-inch wheels, and it's going to be a little more nimble in urban areas. Both the bikes, though, still hold on to a lot of what makes VanMoof the brand that we know and love. They've got those lights built right into the frames. You've got nothing hanging off. They've got that automatic shifting internally geared rear hub, front hub motor, a boost button. So when you're rolling along on pedal assist and you need that extra power for, tackling a hill or overtaking a car, you can hit that boost button on the handlebar and suddenly you'll get some extra torque. There are the disc brakes, and then there's also some cool cargo racks and accessories that VanMoof has brought out as well that can sort of turn these bikes into more than just a commuter city bike, almost more of a utility e-bike. So on the technology side, we've also got a few changes as well. If you guys remember that old style sort of dot matrix display that VanMoof used to use, now it's been deleted. I think that was kind of a controversial piece. Some people liked it. Some people really didn't like it. To me, it seemed a little bit retro, but now we've got a cool new mount for the phone-based app that gives you all of your data right there on the phone. And then you can also access navigation or track your rides, that sort of thing. And then there's also a sort of interesting, I guess I wouldn't call it a display, but it's a halo ring of LEDs that goes around the handlebar. And based on the color changes, it lets you know things like battery display, ride mode, that sort of thing. So again, they've stuck with the minimalist built-in display, but it's a little sleeker and a little less 1980s, I would say, than the dot matrix. So what do you think of the design update, Seth? I know you've had some experience with VanMoof.
Yeah, so I love it, obviously. I think it's, VanMoof is, if nothing, their design. I mean, and VanMoof is more than just design, but I really love the way they go with their bikes, the minimalist approach. There's no, wires hanging off. It's not even obvious that it's an electric bike. I think the biggest controversy with VanMoof, well, a couple, is the front mounted motor. Is that the way to go? It puts some weight on the front wheel. And the question I have, the VanMoof that I used, the gearing wasn't perfect. Like I would go up a hill and it would downshift and make it harder to go. So I had an early prototype. There was some software updates that obviously fixed that kind of stuff. But it's like all the technology added to this is it additive to the biking experience, or you know, is it too much technology? And I think VanMoof is kind of working through those problems to try to make it seamless as possible. But from what we have, like the appearance, they seem amazing. I was also in the um, display matrix thing, the dot thing, being a double-edged sword. At night, it was fine. During I had a light blue version of it, and during the daytime, it was very hard to see anything on the display. So I'm glad they kind of revisited that. They could have made something like a dark background, and it would have probably been usable. But I think most people have mobile phones with them anyway, so this is probably a good move. Um, I noticed on the chain stays, it looks like they have it's not the same uh, sprocket size, and it looks like they have like a little secondary sprocket to make it tighter. I don't know if that's going to change the feel at all. Um, at this
Yeah, I
point, I
think
wonder
they
why they don't just do a belt drive. Um, but and they have the gearing is, I assume, still going to be a 3-speed in the back. Do we know if that's still?
Yeah, I believe it's still a 3 speed.
Hmm,
And yeah, man, I would love to see them go with the belt drive. Though at $3,000 now, I wonder how much higher that would push the
that's
price if they
true.
went with a
Yeah,
belt.
it's a such a high tech bike. It's the chain is like the one thing that kind of, I feel like they could still upgrade. Um, let's see what else. I'm looking at
Yeah,
the
I'll say that.
smaller version. What's that?
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say at least they've got the enclosed chain there, which is nice. It sort of gives you a little bit of the benefit of the belt in that it's clean. It probably requires less oiling because it's not as exposed to the elements, but it doesn't have the nice quiet sound and the long lasting 10, 20,000 miles of a belt.
Yeah, and I do like those brakes as well. That very clean. I don't know. It looks really good. I can't wait to kind of get a review of it. Um, when are these going to be on the streets?
It's a good question. I don't recall exactly. I think in the next couple of months, but I don't think we have any lined up just yet for a review. But as soon as they are, either Seth or myself will definitely be back with these. I know Seth did the last one, so it'd probably be interesting for him to do this model and compare to see how it really feels against the last model they released, the S3, I believe.
Yeah, I love a lot of things about the S3. It was just, we were so early in the review cycle that I feel like they were still polishing the software off a little bit. And actually, Jeff Benjamin at 95 Mac did a subsequent review because of the Find My feature and some other stuff that was Apple friendly. And he
Yeah.
loved it. So I'm definitely excited about getting back in there.
Well,
All
that's the
right,
other
moving
thing about
on.
VanMoof is. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead.
So the last cool thing I would say about VanMoof for all those sort of like Find My integrations and the anti-theft, it's just sort of above and beyond what most companies do for theft deterrence, where they've got the kick lock built in, the bike hunters, the Find My integration. So you're paying $3,000, but you are getting more than other e-bike companies build into their bikes.
Yeah, and traditionally the kind of the knock on VanMoof is that they don't have quite the same amount of power that, just like the standard US bikes have, which is, 750 watts. But they have that throttle, well, the boost button, which they've clarified is not a throttle, but it only works while you're pedaling, so it gets by um, the European laws where you can't have a throttle. So that does help, like, when you're on a hill or whatever, but you still have to be pedaling. It is kind of a quirky situation there. And I think I remember the original VanMoof review. I was like, hey, it has really good power while on the throttle. Why not just make the throttle like the default level of power? But these are more for bike riders and not uh, people who want mopeds.
Yeah, that's a good call.
All right. Moving on. Shaq's favorite bicycle company, DirtySixer, unveils the largest electric bike in the world with 36-inch wheels.
Yeah, so this is kind of nuts. 36-inch wheels, it's a standard size in that it exists, but it's a very specialty type of wheel. I know it's used a lot for unicycles that are designed for higher speeds and longer distances because you can go further, and unicycles are obviously direct drive. But occasionally we've seen full-size bikes built with them, and Dirty Sixer is a company that specializes in 36-inch wheel bicycles, and they've got all sorts of professional athlete clients, especially from the NBA. So there's a lot of NBA players that ride these. And the owner, David Fulch, just rolled out the first electric version of these gigantic bicycles. So it's got a Shimano Steps mid-drive motor, though he's also playing with a Vallejo and I think potentially a Bosch motor as well. So we're not sure what the motor is going to be on the final version. But basically, what you've created is this just sort of ridiculously sized bicycle that fits people that wouldn't normally fit on a standard bicycle with even larger 28, 29-inch wheels. So in the e-bike world, a lot of these bikes are sort of one size fits most. A lot of companies only have one frame size, and the ones that have different sizes, maybe it's two, sometimes three. You rarely get really large sizes. So if you're a 7 foot something basketball player and you want to ride an e-bike, there's not a lot of options out there. I might even say there are no other options out there. So this is a kind of neat niche product that isn't going to have a huge market, but it's got an important market that is underserved, I would say. What do you think, Seth?
Well, first of all, that's Wanda Sykes on there. I thought there was a child, and I guess she's not super tall anyway. But we're if those just listening, we're looking at the video at the bottom of the post. Um, yeah, these folks are big people. These basketball players. I guess it's fantastic that they now have a e-bike option, or will soon have an e-bike option. Um, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like there's advantages to having bigger wheels. Like I know mountain bikes kind of moved to the 29-inch, uh, from the 27 and 26-inch wheels. Would there be any like benefit to normal size people, or just like 6'5" people uh, riding these bikes, or is this kind of for the only for the top end of the bell curve here?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it would feel great rolling over like, potholes and stuff. You could hit
Right.
some pretty big holes and barely dip into them. There's probably, some higher rolling resistance. And on the pedal versions, at least, I imagine getting that thing rolling. I mean, that's a pretty big moment you've got to overcome with all that
Right.
rubber so far away from the center of the axis there. But with an e-bike, it basically takes away that weight penalty. Same thing for fat tire bikes, that they just have a lot of inertia in those wheels, and an e-bike makes it a lot easier to ride them. So if you could climb up onto this as a sort of normal sized person and then potentially still reach the pedals, then yeah, I think it would actually be probably a better ride. But I'm 5'7" and I don't think I'm going to be able to climb onto this ladder of a bike.
Yeah, it does remind me a little bit of the unicycle situation where you kind of like getting on is going to be the hardest part. So that's
Yeah,
interesting. Well, good
it's like
for
a
them.
penny farthing on two
I'm glad
wheels.
they're serving the other part of the market there. All right, moving on. Bafang launches new M510 high power lightweight electric bike mid drive motor.
So Bafang is, for anyone who's not familiar, probably the most highly regarded of the Asian motor manufacturers. Most people wouldn't rank it up there with like Bosch and Brose, but they are a very good motor manufacturer, and they have just rolled out this new M510 mid-drive motor that replaces their former M500. And this is a higher power motor. I mean, it's listed as 250 watts for legal reasons, but they're able to say the real torque, which is 95 Newton meters. And torque is really the way that you compare these mid-drive motors, because when the wattage is regulated to a maximum of 250 watts, that means they all get a 250 watt sticker. So I would say at 95 Newton meters of torque, it's in the probably upper 25 percentile of power for all the mid-drive motors out there. And the more powerful ones are pretty much those made by Bafang. So they're really competing with themselves here. And this new motor comes with a torque sensor, a couple of display options, which in the past we haven't always seen multiple displays from Bafang. So, they're starting to move into some of the, Bosch and Brose territory with offering a wider selection of parts in their ecosystem so that OEMs can manufacture bikes with different options and, different batteries, that sort of thing. So this this new motor with the torque sensor and the multiple components in the ecosystem seems like it's really pushing Bafang into a new level here. Some of these nicer, higher quality motors that are going to better compete with their European rivals. And in the past we've had a really good experience with these powerful Bafang motors. Seth, I know you've done some of the Bafang Ultra motor before. Care to share any of your power experiences with Bafang?
Yeah, so I think the Ultra is a great motor. Unfortunately, I don't think the bike industry was kind of ready for the amount of torque that these things have. For me, I ended up kind of ruining my rear sprocket or my rear sprocket set, because I shifted in the middle of a hill and it kind of just melt. I
Heat
didn't
it
have
up.
a shift sensor in the particular bike I was on, so it just kind of melted the rear sprocket. The chain kind of did that, like spun until it broke. Um, so you got to be careful with these things. They're a little bit too powerful. I think the bike industry has to kind of catch up. And I think wasn't Bafang even actually working on their own chains and sprockets, or am I
It's never
dreaming?
been confirmed, but it's rumored that they are.
Okay,
It has been for years. So I could see them doing it because it's a necessity for the really highest end of their power spectrum. Though this
yeah,
new M510 motor here, it might be sort of in the sweet spot because at 95 Newton meters, if you compare that to the 160 from the Bafang Ultra motor, this might be the, very powerful without destroying itself sweet spot.
okay, yeah. I mean, like this is a 3 pound motor. I think the Ultra is what something like or sorry, 3 kilogram motor, 6 pounds. The Ultra is like double that, and this is going to have on a torque basis, it's got 95 newton meters of torque. And what is the Ultra at?
160.
Okay, so most of the torque, half of the weight. It's a pretty good trade off, I think.
Yeah, and I think, if you compare it to something like Bosch, I think that Bosch's highest power motors, I think they go up to 90 Newton meters of torque. So even, the highest end of the European motors aren't quite reaching this level.
Yeah, that's always been like Bafang has always been like, well, if you want more power, you should look into this Bafang. So it's good to see that they're not just going higher, higher, and higher. They're actually working on the things like weight and displays, and they're hitting all the good spots. Good to see. All
Absolutely.
right, moving on. Himiway updates its popular 28 mile per hour plus mile per hour Escape Pro moped style electric bike with higher performance.
So if you're not familiar with the Himiway Escape, it's what a lot of people call it a juiced Scorpion knockoff, and I would say it's in that class of sort of step through moped style bikes. I don't know if the Scorpion originated that. I mean, you could argue it originated in like the 60s, but Juice definitely popularized it with the Scorpion. And so Himiway came in with this very popularly accepted moped style frame, and it's been successful for a few years. But it had probably the biggest drawback, I would say, was only a modest size battery. It was at 48 volt and 14 amp hours, which I think is 670 watt hours. So they made a few updates here with the Escape Pro. The biggest one was that they just upped the battery. So now you're at 17 and a half amp hours, which puts you into, I think, 840 watt hours. And that's a pretty big battery. It doesn't quite reach Juiced's 1 kilowatt hour, but it definitely increases the range. And that's important for Spike specifically because while the Escape ships as a class 2 street legal e-bike with a 20 mile an hour or 32 kilometer per hour top speed, It's widely known that you can unlock it to closer to 30 miles an hour, even on throttle only operation. And so pretty much everyone unlocks it. And when you're traveling at 30-ish miles an hour on an e-bike, you're burning through a lot of battery very quickly. The faster you go, you're using exponentially more energy. So it's a pretty important update to be able to add more battery to this bike, because I think the company realized everyone was basically turning these into little motorcycles, and they definitely needed more battery. So in addition to that bigger battery, they also updated a few other things. I think they changed some of the wire routing, and I think the frame might have been slightly modified, but generally this is just a larger capacity battery on what was already a very popular e-bike. Mag wheels, throttle controlled, full suspension. A lot of people were really big on this e-bike, and I think probably the biggest downside of Himiway, and one of their only downsides, is they just aren't known for the same level of customer support as the more US based companies like Juiced Bikes, for example. But as far as performance and value goes, the Escape and now the Escape Pro are just really high bang for your buck if you're looking for sort of a moped or almost mini motorcycle style electric bike.
Yeah, it's definitely got that juiced Scorpion look. How do they compare price wise? They're a couple hundred less, I imagine.
Yeah, so this one, I believe it's 18.99 now, maybe 17.99, and so compared to the Juiced Scorpion X, which I think is the entry level Scorpion now, I believe the Scorpion's a tiny bit more, though the Scorpion does come with hydraulic disc brakes, and you get sort of Juiced's ecosystem of batteries and accessories and stuff. So you definitely have some more goodies that you're getting with the Juiced Scorpion. But in terms of value, I would say that there's still a lot of bang for buck here. It's a little bit less than the Scorpion, but it's actually a little bit more battery capacity, I believe, on compared to the entry level Scorpion. Now, if you
Right,
upgrade to the Hyper Scorpion, there's no comparison.
right.
And I think
Kilowatt
Seth,
hour.
you've got some Hyper Scorpion experience, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like the look of this. It doesn't look as beefy, like especially in the back area. The seat kind of looks a little bit more simple. But like it certainly probably does the job. I've never actually even ridden a Hemiway, but it looks like a solid bike. Um, I also noticed the handlebars seem a little bit higher than the Scorpion. I wonder if that's a different feel as well.
Yeah, it's definitely got an upright feel. I'm trying to, think now. I'd have to see the two of them next to each other to really compare, but it definitely does have a very upright, almost cruiser-ish feel to it.
Yeah, and it looks like it has a better or a bigger display. So maybe it's a little bit better than the Scorpion display, which is kind of like one of those really small, gives you what you need, but not too much more than that. Displays that Juice typically has.
Yeah, I'd say the display here is not as data dense. You can like go into the settings in the juiced one and really get a lot of information on the other screens that you can flip through. But
Right,
it definitely has a much clearer screen here because it's just kind of giant and in your face.
right. And then so the actual like we know 250 watts is what the law is in a lot of places, but what are we talking about once you unlock everything? What's the highest output? Are we talking about like 1,000 kilowatts, or sorry, 1,000 watts, or 1.5
I
kilowatts, or what?
Yeah, I think we're probably in like the little over 1,000, maybe 1,200 watt territory. It's probably a either 22 or 25 amp controller in there running a 48-volt battery. So probably a bit over 1,000 watts.
Okay, so compared to that's comparable to like the base model, like the Scorpion X, or um, maybe even if you want to do another comparison, like uh, close to like Rad Runner.
Yeah, I'd say even a little more powerful than the Rad Runner. I'd say like the Scorpion X got a bit of a power boost over the original Scorpion, So it's
Right.
probably comparable to that, though. Um, at this point now, I think they're so close. I'm trying to think about which one feels like, that more seat of the pants when you twist the throttle, and
Hmm.
they're pretty darn close now.
And how's the suspension? I noticed also very similar.
Yeah, for me, it's a bit stiff. I'm pretty lightweight though, at about 150 pounds. So, I'm below the average American weight. And so they probably have it set up for a bit heavier of a rider.
Hmm.
So, I would dial back the preload a little bit. But in general, when you hit something, it's nice to have those dual coilover shocks back there because it really does make a difference. And, you don't get launched out of the saddle the way you
Yeah,
would on a hardtail moped.
especially going 30 miles per hour. And
Yeah.
I noticed there's some places for accessories. Does Himiway offer like a front basket or a second person seat option?
Yeah, so they have the front basket, but they don't have a second seat that can go on back there like Juice does. I feel like it'd be an easy thing to add, and maybe they will, but they don't have the same collection of accessories that Juice has. That's for sure.
Yeah, when I put my son on a similar bike, we just threw a towel on the holder area, and I mean, this is for riding to the beach, so it wasn't anything too crazy. Um, so it looks like you could probably throw a towel on the back of there and do an emergency ride.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty beefy, so especially for a kid, I think you could get away with a DIY seat.
All right, yeah, cool bike. Definitely want to check that out. All right, moving on. 32 mile per hour aerial rider Kepler launches as a 1800 uh, watt fat tire electric bike with giant battery. So we know aerial rider from um, or aerial from previous bikes. This is their full size fat tire bike.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say they're better known for electric mopeds, kind of in the Himiway class, but a little higher power, a little more excessive. And in fact, I'd say excessive is a good way to describe aerial rider. It's like they know where the limit is, and then they go like 2 or 3 steps past there. Is sort of their ethos, and that's basically what they've done here. I'd say. So the Kepler, it's in that class of like a Rad Rover and Aventon Adventure, that sort of fat tire electric bike, but just much higher power. It's 1,800 watts of peak power, and that sort of fits with the way Aerial Rider builds their bikes. And they say it goes 32 miles an hour when it's unlocked. Of course, it ships in 20 mile an hour class 2 mode, but you can unlock it. And if anything, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes even faster because some of their other bikes go several miles an hour faster than they claim.
Yeah, it's nice to see exceeding expectations, or under promising and over delivering there.
Yeah,
Um,
rarity.
yeah. So obviously not legal once you uh, unlock it. How do you unlock it, by the way? Is it a
It's
software
usually in the
thing or?
display. Yeah, so you have to go in and usually for these, there's a pretty simple menu that you get into. It's generally like you hold, up and down, or there's a combination of keys that you hold, and then you can select things like the tire diameter, the odometer, the speed limit, that sort of thing. On the Grizzly, which is their like top of the line flagship moped, you actually need a password to unlock the speed.
Oh,
So on
interesting.
that one, I had to actually like text the owner of the company and be like, "Hey, can I get the password so this thing goes 35 miles an hour?"
All right, yeah. So if you need the password for the Grizzly, text the owner. No, text Micah.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll hook you up.
so I love these bikes. 30, probably let's say 35 mile per hour top speed. Um, that kind of puts them in a motorcycle-ish or at least moped-ish range. Do you see these being used on like regular streets as a round towner, or is this kind of strictly off road?
Yeah, that's a very good point that you touch on, and I think there's a lot of rider responsibility that goes on here. So obviously, this is designed as almost an adventure bike. So while you can ride it on road and in a bike lane, it's really going to shine off road on trails, like rails to trails networks, some modest single track. I probably wouldn't take this on like, a downhill course, but for overlanding, gravel roads, that kind of stuff where you're going to be making use of those big fat tires and the suspension, I could see a lot of fun, especially putting it in the unlocked mode. And when it comes to commuting in a city, I'm sure people are going to use it unlocked there as well, because it really does turn it into like a small motorcycle at that point, which can be very useful. But at the same time, I think you have to be really careful about sort of the appearance of riding an obviously illegally fast e-bike in a city. It brings a lot of unwanted attention to e-bikes, and we really enjoy this really nice area of regulation right now with the 3-class system. And if a lot of people are out there being hooligans and riding too fast, or heaven forbid, getting hurt or hurting other people, then that obviously is going to negatively impact the regulatory situation that we enjoy right now. So I do hope that if people are riding these on the streets, and if they're doing it unlocked, that A, they're not doing it around other cyclists in the bike lane, and B, they're being reasonable and safe about how they're doing it when they're riding in the lane. Because there's a lot of momentum on these big heavy 90 something pound fat tire bikes when they're moving at 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, speaking of that, what are those 180s or bigger brake?
I'm pretty sure they're 180s. I don't think they're 203s, but they
Okay.
are hydraulic brakes. So at least you've got some good powerful brakes to bring you to a stop from 30 plus miles an hour.
Yeah, I guess if you are traveling at 30 something miles per hour, you might want to think ahead a little bit when slowing down.
Yeah,
Um,
there's some planning to be done.
and what do we know about the Kepler name? That sounds like a space thing that I've heard or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they chose that. They're kind of all over the place. They started with most of the names being the something class. They had like the X class, the D class, the M class. That was kind of a theme. And then all of a sudden they went Grizzly on their new one, and now we're at
Yeah.
Kepler. So they're kind of, bouncing all over with the nomenclature here.
And we should also mention that their Radial City e-bike is 899 now, which I think that's probably the lowest price, like high quality bike out there.
Yeah, in terms of like a city bike or a metro bike, I mean, that's some of the best bang for your buck you're ever going to see. And it's the one not ridiculously high powered aerial rider bike. It's only 20 miles an hour and only 750 watts, which is like low power for this company.
Yeah. Cool. All right. We're gonna move on. Um, so we're going a little bit higher power now. Electric motorbike maker Onyx unveils new lower cost CTY2 City 2 model as US built electric moped. So we've loved these for a while. Onyx is an interesting company to say the least.
Definitely. Yeah, they've been around for a while too. It's I think it was back in 2018 they ran their first Indiegogo, and they actually launched two models on Indiegogo. There was their RCR, which is their sort of top tank style electric moped, and then there was a model that looked just like this one, which was the CTY. And that one was about half the performance of the RCR. So while the RCR went 60 miles an hour, about 100 kilometers an hour, CTY was 30 or about 50 kilometers an hour. And that one didn't sell very well when they launched it. I think they only sold about 40 of those, and they sold many, many hundreds of the RCR. And so they never ended up making those after the Indiegogo was fulfilled. They just made enough for those original backers, and then that whole frame style and design of electric moped was sort of put on the back burner. With the CEO telling me that they wanted to pick it up at some point. This was back in 2009. He told, or 2019, that he told me this, but you could tell that they were just swamped with orders for the higher performance RCR. So now, out of nowhere, they come out with the CTY2 reboot, which is a performance improvement over the original CTY. And I think that's going to make it a lot more desirable, because when the first model went 30 miles an hour, now this one has about 50% higher top speed. So it gets up to about 45 miles an hour, or about 72 kilometers per hour. The interesting thing is you won't find those specs on the website though, because Onyx doesn't actually put the performance specs on the website, as they sit in this sort of weird legal gray area between electric bicycles and electric mopeds or motorcycles. So, which seems to be a theme with this podcast here, is that the bikes ship as street legal 20-mile-an-hour electric bicycles. They've got pedals, they've got handlebars, 750-watt limited motors. So they technically fulfill all the requirements of a street legal electric bicycle. But as a uh, unnamed source at the company has told me, these bikes will have 2 wires that will be able to be connected under the wooden cover there. That'll open up the normal and the sport modes to get it up to either 30 or 45 miles an hour. It will unlock the 1500-watt continuous and 4000-watt peak rated motor. And it basically turns these into the little electric mopeds, or almost electric motorcycles that they really are. And so with the CTY now doing about 45 miles an hour, it's definitely a big improvement over the original CTY that didn't really sell that well because the performance was a bit muted.
Yeah, for those listening, we're watching the video that came out with this, and clearly they're not listing high speed on their website. But if you look at the video, it's it's very clear that these are not going 20 miles per hour. It's almost comically fast. It almost seems like they're speeding up the video because they're going. These guys, they're like on a drone shot from like, 200 feet high, and they're flying by. Uh, at even 45 seems like kind of slow for these
And they're even
guys, but
off road too.
yeah. So it looks like a ton of fun. I've never actually been on an Onyx, so maybe on this go round I'll get a chance to jump on one. Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
it looks like a
They're
ton of fun. I mean, these are kind of like a step up from, what we were talking about before, the aerial, sorry, the aerial grizzly, or the juiced hyper
Himiway.
scorpion, or the
Yeah.
Himiway there. These higher voltage, I think, what is it? Is it 72 or 60 volt?
This is 60. Yeah, the RCR is
Okay.
72 volt.
So higher voltage, what is the actual wattage output of the motor? Do we even know?
So it's 1.5 kilowatt continuous, but 4,000 watts peak.
Okay. So we're talking a different animal here. This is a motorcycle-ish, not maybe not motorcycle, but it's a definite different class than the the stuff that we were talking about earlier. We compare it to the Aerial Rider Grizzly and the Super 73R Brooklyn. Those are like, $3,500 bikes. And this one comes in at $3,700 on pre-order. So you're getting a lot of bike for not a lot more than the other bikes in this category. So that's
Yeah, and
pretty tempting.
yeah, and 45 miles an hour, like that's, some serious commuter spec right there. If you're
Right.
staying in a city, then you never really need to go over 45 miles an hour.
Right. And obviously these are marketed a little bit more as off-road, but the tires kind of look not as off-road as some of the other bikes we've seen. They're a
Yeah, they
little
offer
bit
a
thinner.
couple options.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are people that really use these for like trail riding like this, and then I
Hmm.
think they have some sort of like dual sport where they're sort of like a bit knobbier but still enough tread for street riding. But they really do sort of market these as like really almost dual sport bikes that you could take to work during the week, and then on the weekends you can go play around on them. And I've only ridden the Onyx RCR once. I was able to meet up with James, their CEO, back before Corona, so it was like 2019, and we did riding on the same bikes, same tires on both off road and the street. So the ability to just go back and forth, and like be on a fire road and then hop right onto like sort of a local urban highway is pretty trippy.
Yeah. I mean, they look certainly off-road capable. Um, and obviously with the video, clearly they're having tons of fun out there. Um, I guess like my last question is like when are these going to hit the streets? Like it's they're Indiegogo now, but they clearly have a track record of making the things that they pre-order. But oh, it's not Indiegogo. They're just doing their own kind of thing, right?
Yeah, this time they're just taking pre-orders on their site, and I think it was July that they said shipping would start.
Okay, that's not too
Yeah, there
long.
we go. July, August. Yeah, give
Cool.
themselves a little wiggle room there with the July to August.
So if you order, you only have to pre-order and put down $100, or is that how does it work?
Yeah, so you can put down a reservation, but I think what they say is if you pay in full, then you're at the front of the line for the first shipments.
Oh, interesting. Got it. Well, that's pretty cool. And if you're in the market for like we said before, the Aerial Grizzly, although the Aerial Grizzly is all-wheel drive, I don't know if that makes a difference for people. And the Super 73 has a different look to it. But if you're in the market for like one of these $3,500 bikes, uh, this is like double the output. So uh, pretty tempting price wise. As a
Yeah,
matter of fact,
definitely.
I'm thinking about, all right, maybe I need this. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I could see a space for this in my life. Like
yeah,
this.
exactly. 40 miles per hour. I like the sound of that. All right. Let's move on before I make a stupid decision here. All right. TS Bravo is the latest low cost electric motorcycle with the specs and price to upend the industry.
Yeah, so the TS Bravo is a pretty new motorcycle, but it is now spreading around Europe. They're expanding into Oceania with Australia, New Zealand. There's a new dealer like 10 minutes from my apartment in Tel Aviv, and it's really sort of taking Europe by storm because this is a highway capable electric motorcycle. Gets up to about 85 miles an hour, or I think like 130 kilometers per hour. And it's got a gigantic battery. It's something like 17 kilowatt hours. Yet it is priced well below what a motorcycle with that level of performance and that size battery would cost from a company like Zero. So it's something like 12,000 euros, which is about 13,000 or so dollars, and it's really sort of pushing this commuter electric motorcycle into the next league. So if you compare it to something like the Saunders Metacycle, right? So that's a presumably 80 mile an hour electric motorcycle, though no one's really been able to test that yet. And that bike at $6,000 has less than a quarter of the battery. So this one you could actually ride it, like 100 plus miles on the highway. I think even I think it was something like 160 miles or something like that. But the city range is like 270 miles. It's crazy. I mean, you could charge this like once a month if you're staying in the city.
Yeah, so this kind of fits a little bit between the Saunders Metacycle types and like a Zero price wise, but kind of pretty close to the Zero uh, in terms of performance and specs.
Yeah, the one area it falls short is it doesn't have the highest speed. So at 85, that'll get you on the highway just fine. Like I can live my whole life not needing to go faster than 85 miles an hour. But if you wanted to do 100 plus miles an hour, you need a Harley Davidson Livewire or a Zero or an Energica, one of the like flagship electric motorcycles.
Right,
This one is it's for someone who doesn't need the bragging rights of triple digits. It's that
right.
just needs a fast enough motorcycle to do anything they want on the highway. And occasionally I'll still hear people say like, no, you need the higher speed in case you need to overtake someone. But that I can see the argument, but I really think that 85 miles an hour, that's basically all most everyone needs for a highway capable motorcycle that can truly go anywhere. That it's not one of these middleweight electric motorcycles that you can't really take on the highway or take in the fast lane. This one, I think I'd feel comfortable taking it anywhere, and it has the specs to hold its own there. Not to mention that giant battery, which to put that in perspective, 17 kilowatt hours. That's much higher than Zero's 14 kilowatt hours. It's got a leg up on Harley, which I think is 15 and a half. The only bike that I can think of that has a higher battery is the highest capacity Energica, which is 21 kilowatt hours, I believe. So it's got a bit more capacity, but that's also like 2.5 times the price.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's
dollars to kilowatt hours, like you just can't beat this.
so smaller output, bigger battery. That means range is going to be better. 272 miles, city speeds, 172 miles mixed, and 75 miles at highway. Are we talking about like
No, 100
displacing,
miles at highway.
what is it?
Yeah, at 75 miles an hour, you get 100 miles.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Um, that, so how about charging? What's the charging situation?
Charging, I believe that they have is it the Type 2 European charger? I forget what the
Yeah,
like car and
it says 3.8 kilowatt charger, but is there a
yeah.
fast like DC charging option?
No, it doesn't have DC fast charging. It has the 3.8 kilowatt onboard AC charger, and then I think it's got the European connector because it's only available right now in Europe. Well, actually, also they're expanding into Asia and Oceania. I'm not sure what
Hmm.
charging connectors they use over there, but it doesn't have like a J1772 or anything yet because they just
Right.
aren't in the US yet. But you would be able to plug it in either from a level 2 station, like any public charging
Right.
station on the corner, or you could plug it in at home. And in Europe, where there's 220 volts, it still is going to charge pretty quickly in about 4 hours there from like a home outlet. So that's pretty decent.
Yeah, not bad. So for our US listeners, any chance that this is coming to the US?
So I talked to the European team, and they like the idea of expanding to the US, but they've pretty much got their hands full in Europe. And I certainly understand that. I mean, even for Zero Motorcycles, which is a American company based in California, the majority of their sales are in Europe. So I get that the US market is just smaller and that they're not in a hurry to expand to the States.
Right, makes sense. All right, looks cool. Moving on. Wolf King GT Pro review. So we're switching gears, so to speak, a little bit. This is a scooter. I don't want to say like a razor kick scooter because this is definitely not that. How I reviewed a 63 mile per hour standing electric scooter and lived to tell about it.
I think a Razor scooter is like breakfast for this thing. I
Right,
mean, this is an
an
all-wheel
appetizer for
drive.
breakfast.
This just whets your appetite. Yeah, I
Right.
mean, two motors, a gigantic battery, 63 miles an hour, over 100 kilometers an hour. This thing is just insane. For a lot of my testing, I actually just kept it in rear wheel drive because two motors is like more than you often need. And to be honest, I rarely got it up past 50 miles an hour, not because it couldn't do it, but just because that felt like fast enough. Like I didn't even hit the 62 or 63 mile an hour top speed because to me, like, it's fun that it can do that, but 50 miles an hour is fun enough, in my opinion.
So you didn't take it
And
on the highway, is what you're saying?
I didn't take it on the highway. No, if you've seen TikTok videos of dudes doing like 60 miles an hour with cars, those are not me. Sorry.
Well, it's good to know that in some sort of emergency, like you need to go to the hospital or something, you can get on the highway with this thing.
Yeah, or you can get a shortcut and take this to the ambulance.
Right, exactly. Because you're gonna need an ambulance if you're riding this too much on the highway anyway. So
Yeah.
crazy bike, but that extra power, I imagine it's good for not just highways, but also for like accelerating up a hill, for instance.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And that's a point that I tried to hammer home in this review is that just because it's ridiculously powerful and can go highway speeds doesn't mean you have to ride it that way. Like for most of my riding, I was in the high 40s. And that extra power basically means that you've got the acceleration when you need it. When you're at the front at a red light, you can pull out ahead of the cars and stay away from all of the danger of getting run over. And if you're climbing hills, I mean, this thing, if the wheels were sticky enough, I think it'd climb up a wall. That's how powerful it is. So no
That's nuts.
hill is gonna best this scooter, and that's really where that high performance comes in. If you want to go 60 miles an hour, you can do it. That's a certain type of thrill that I guess some people really enjoy. But for me, the extra power was really the difference here. And of course, the scooter's built for it, right? Like it's got really powerful brakes. The regenerative braking itself, you have to be careful when it comes on because it comes on powerfully, though you can adjust it. And it's got really good hydraulic suspension, high ground clearance. So if you want to take it off road, you can be going over rocks and roots and stuff. They do have off road tires. The one I tested had the street tires, so I didn't do too much off-roading. I tried, but it was just so powerful that I couldn't get any traction on like dirt and grass with those street tires.
And did I just see that there was two chargers there?
Yeah, the battery's so big, it's like 2.5 kilowatt hours that it's got two charger ports and it ships with two chargers. So you can charge it quicker because with 2.5 kilowatt hours, I think, the charge time would be like almost a day or something with like a small 2 amp charger. So
Wow,
even with two, I think it's 12 hours.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
Looks
that's
like a
what you
ton of
get with such a
fun.
big battery.
So, are there any regulations? I mean, we talk about bike regulations. Are there any regulations here? Obviously, you're not supposed to take this on the highway, but like, what's the situation on roads?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it varies state by state, so it's hard to say. But there are not really clear regulations for electric scooters the way there are for electric bicycles, like with the three-class system. So in some states, these things are just illegal. In some states, they're legislated and they are legal. But in many places, it's just this gray area where they haven't been legalized, but they're not inherently illegal either. So I think that's why you see a lot of people getting away with like highway riding and stuff. Either they're just blatantly breaking the law, or it's because there's nothing that's actually been legislated yet to prevent that from happening. Because this is a very, I would say, new category. These really high powered scooters. Now, they have been around for years, but only in the last couple of years have they really taken off as actual commuter vehicles with a pretty big community of people that commute to work every day and use this basically instead of a motorcycle.
Crazy. And safety wise, how do these compare? Like, are there any numbers out there versus motorcycles or bikes? Like, are they less safe, more safe?
It's a good question. I'm not sure they've been around long enough to have any official statistics. I know that the like smaller, Lime and Bird style scooters, there are actual statistics, and those are considered fairly dangerous. But I think one of the reasons that you see higher per capita injuries on those is that you have a lot of people that don't normally ride getting on a Lime scooter or a Bird scooter for the first time, and so you're
Right. And they
you're
don't have
seeing a
helmets and they're probably inebriated and etc.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And so this one, I mean, you can see in the video that when I'm riding it faster, I'm wearing my motorcycle helmet. I'm wearing, my full armored jacket, boots, motorcycle gloves. And when I'm just in neighborhoods, I was definitely in a t-shirt and jeans. And that's probably not wise. Even riding a 25-mile-an-hour electric bicycle, if you go down in a t-shirt, you're going to get a bit messed up. But,
Right.
for higher speed stuff, I was definitely suited up in my motorcycle gear.
Cool. Well, yeah, definitely stay safe out there. Um, you know what? I still laugh about our trip to Germany where I think each one of us wrecked at least one time on an e-bike. All
Yeah.
right, moving last one of the week. Awesomely weird Alibaba vehicle of the week was the $8,000 electric boat with submarine capsule, and I think Michael Bauer, our in-house artist, kind of outdid himself this time.
Yeah, that guy is a wizard. So if you guys wonder how I miraculously get to virtually test all of these weird Alibaba electric vehicles I find every week, it's definitely Michael Bauer's magician skills with Photoshop. So here I am on what is probably the weirdest electric boat I've ever seen. This thing is, I would call it something of a pontoon boat. I mean, it's sort of got two pontoons that in the center suspend an underwater capsule. And so when you go below deck, I guess, I don't even know what the terminology is on something this weird, but when you drop down into that capsule, it is a sort of submarine. I don't even know what you would call it. It's just like a box surrounded with windows. I mean, it's kind of my nightmare to be in like
Yeah.
a washing machine underwater.
I would almost want to wear like scuba gear just to go down there.
Yeah, right. Like it's both fascinating and terrifying at the
Right.
same time. But I guess you would have an amazing view because you're in this like glass box suspended under the water from this electric pontoon boat, and you
And
can,
theoretically, you can just jump just straight up and be safe, theoretically, right?
as long as that door opens,
Right. Okay.
it's a bad time for the hinges to freeze.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess the good side is like probably those windows are one kick away from, falling out. So if something started leaking and the door didn't open, you could probably just kick your way out of that pretty quickly.
I don't know if that's comforting or not.
Yeah. There's no comfort in any of this. And it's weird. I don't know why it looks like a bathroom. Like I don't know what all those materials are down there, but like it just seemed it's got a bathroom vibe to me for some reason.
Yeah, like if a plain bathroom and a porta potty had a baby, this
Right.
is what it would be.
Yeah, and maybe that's, I'm used to, when you go in a boat down to the head, that's kind of what that's the only reason you go down. Uh well, super interesting. Like I can see this being neat for people who like to go diving and don't want to get wet. So, or
It's an
don't want to get
interesting
that wet. Maybe not getting wet is optimistic here.
Yeah, I might wet myself in this thing.
Right. You got to worry about your own wetness. Uh, so it's $8,000. By the time it ships to you, what are we thinking here?
Probably like down payment on a house, I would say.
Okay. All right. So maybe if you know somebody in China who wants to boat this across the Pacific for you or something, makes sense. I don't
Yeah, the
know.
hazard pay on that.
Yeah, the hazard. Uh, well, it's certainly a unique idea. It fits perfectly in our series, Alibaba Weird Electric Vehicle of the Week. What's the top speed on this thing?
I'm not sure. They were very light on specs, unfortunately, and I wasn't able to get the spec sheet like I usually am. So all I know is it's got two of those enclosed sort of like electric paddleboard style motors, and it doesn't
Yeah,
look particularly fast.
no, it kind of looks like an electric fan underwater in this particular image, and over here it looks a little bit more, which is weird. You would think they would look similar, but over here it looks a little bit more professional. Um, oh, right. Well, that's that certainly fits the category. And that's our last story of the week. Let's take a look at some of the comments. A exciting one here for you, I'm sure. Micah's dad commented. I'm Micah's dad, and I just wanted to say how proud his mom and I are of our son and all of the good he's doing by promoting personal electric vehicles in a positive and supportive way.
Wow, thank you, Dad. I appreciate it.
So you're gonna. So we're both in Florida right now. I think you're traveling across the state to visit the parents. I'm hopefully gonna meet you in Sarasota, which is kind of between where we are, in a couple of days. So that should be fun. But it is nice to be down here in Florida. I'm seeing in-laws. You're seeing your parents. It's cool. Do you know? So Milos Milovic says, what about a Shaqs RS motor? I think that's in response to the Bafang we were talking about. Are you familiar with that motor?
I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to look it up. Sounds new to me.
All right. Frank D asks, any good foldable e-bikes with a passenger seat?
The one that's coming to mind is the Fido L3, I think it's called, but it's a very small wheeled. It's like I think it's 16-inch wheels, and the passenger seat is very low. So best for kids or like a small adult, I would say. I'm trying to think of anything that would be like sort of rad runner sized with a full, adult size passenger back seat. And I'm
What
blanking,
about,
unfortunately.
is there a add-on to the Electrek XP?
I've seen people sit on the rear rack, but there is not an official passenger seat. I think the rack is rated at 75 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, or 77, which means that, they had to have put at least double on it for testing.
Right.
And the fact that I've seen, people like carrying their girlfriend back there.
Right.
So, not
Yeah.
advised, but effective.
Yeah. So get a couple towels and have a good time. All right. Rahul Raj says electric fat tire cycle 2 months back. India 67K BMW original. I don't know if I can decipher that. What do you think?
Yeah, it sounds like he converted a fat tire motorcycle, perhaps, and I forget what the conversion is for. Um, is it rupees in India?
Oh, maybe that's the
67,000.
67K.
Yeah, I think he bought it for 67K. I don't know. I'll have to follow up with more detail, Raul.
All right. Then that's the end of the comments today.
All right. Well, this has been the Wheelie podcast. Thank you guys, everyone, for joining in. And we will be back in 2 weeks, probably from different cities, both of us, but we will be talking again about the most popular electric bike and other electric rideable news. So we will see you back here in a fortnight.